All right, let's cut to India and UK's free trade agreement. We're looking at the two countries now, extensively discussing trade with both countries, cutting down nearly 90% tariffs on goods. India and the UK have decided to do that. Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister, is in India and he's brought along a barat of business leaders like we've never seen before. 125-member delegation, that's what you see on our screens there. The biggest ever UK trade mission to India that we've seen. They touched down in Mumbai, led by a visibly charged Prime Minister Keir Starmer. In fact, Keir Starmer, even before he landed, his enthusiasm was quite clear. He got to the cockpit of the flight, grabbed the cockpit mic mid-flight to address passengers, setting a tone there for what is currently being called a landmark visit by the UK delegation. Let's hear it.
This is the biggest, this is the Prime Minister. I'm in the cockpit and a very warm welcome to BA flight 9100 to Mumbai. It's really fantastic to have you all on board. This is the biggest trade mission to India that the UK has ever sent. So I'm much looking forward to working with you as we explore all of the opportunities and take full advantage of the opportunities in our new free trade agreement. So safe flight, everybody. Enjoy the flight, and I'll give you further information.
All right, there you have it. Keir Starmer in Mumbai. He was received by Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, Deputy Chief Ministers Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar, and Governor Acharya Devrat. All of them received him as soon as he arrived and his delegation. Day one was packed for Keir Starmer, meetings with industry leaders, a visit to a youth football centre as well. That's where Keir Starmer arrived at, a youth football venue where he got a close look at the Premier League trophy and also then visited Yash Raj Studios for a film screening. Yash Raj Studios there, he also announced that 3 blockbuster Bollywood movies are now going to be shot in the UK in the next 3 years. So he's super excited to build business between India and the United Kingdom. And here was his tour today at the Yash Raj Studios with Rani Mukherjee itself. Starmer has called the India-UK Free Trade Agreement the most important economic deal for UK since Brexit, saying that he wants to see it implemented as soon as possible, as soon as humanly possible. These are his words. Let's listen in.
This is the biggest trade mission that the United Kingdom has ever sent to India. We had Prime Minister Modi over to the United Kingdom earlier this year to sign the FTA, the free trade agreement that we agreed, and today is the return leg of that, if you like. That FTA is really important for us. It's the biggest deal that we've struck since we left the EU, and I think it's the biggest deal that India has ever struck, so hugely important.
Now, what exactly is the free trade agreement that India and the UK have signed? It was finalized in May this year. The FTA, in fact, eliminates tariffs on nearly 99% of Indian goods and 90% of UK exports. It's designed to open up markets, boost investment and create jobs in both nations. For India, it's a huge push, and particularly in the areas of textiles, leather, agriculture, IT services, gems and auto parts, sectors that could see major job growth as well as exports rise. Remember, this also comes in the back of Trump tariffs. So where India is losing out, it appears that the traders might just gain with this UK free trade agreement. For UK, it means cheaper imports of Indian goods like apparel, seafood, footwear, while Britain's whisky, cosmetics and high-end engineering products find a bigger market here. Of course, UK, we hear, is ecstatic that India has reduced the tariffs on whisky. So they're very happy to send a lot more of the alcohol, whisky particularly, to India. Tomorrow, Starmer is expected to meet with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss deeper cooperation from defense and tech to expanding direct flights as well between the two countries. Already there are enough flights, but we hear there are added flights now between Delhi to London. At least 3 flights daily that they want to add to ensure that trade is seamless. A visit that began like a celebration could soon redefine one of the world's most promising partnerships, taking India-UK bond from handshake to action. Let me bring in Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, former Indian ambassador WTO. We also have Adit Kothari, foreign affairs expert, joining us live from London. Thank you both of you for joining us. Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, let me start with you. The first of its kind delegation, 125 members. Keir Starmer, we know, is an upbeat personality. He's always smiling, always full of life. Never expected him to bring 125-member delegation. He's brought university experts, he's got CEOs, he's got ministers, he's got just a whole range of people meaning business. This just shows that he means business and he wants to ensure the best trade deal is etched between India and UK.
I think for both countries, it is a big achievement. For UK, after their exit from the European Union, they need access to more markets, and the large Indian market provides that opportunity. For India also, we're also looking to integrate our economy with the world on our terms. And I think an integration with a very sophisticated economy like like UK, is a huge plus point. It follows the free trade agreement that we have already ratified with the EFTA countries, and I hope that this is also a precursor to the negotiations that we are having with the European Union. It is a very big plus point in several ways. First of all, several of our labor-intensive industries like apparel and textiles, like footwear and leather, gems and jewelry, auto components, processed agricultural foods. These kind of products get access, and therefore it leads to greater income generation and employment generation in India. Secondly, I think the important thing is that our professionals get better access to the UK market. I'm talking about service providers like our IT service providers, like the engineering and financial services service providers, and so on. So a large number of Indian professionals are going to get better access to the UK, and this is a major plus point for this agreement. Thirdly, I think there is also the small print about non-tariff barriers. For instance, the mutual recognition of standards in sanitary and phytosanitary standards, for instance, or the recognition of qualifications of various kinds like accountancy and engineering. These are again very big plus points and will help us to access the UK market in a much bigger way. One major opening that India has provided is in its public procurement space. This is almost unprecedented. India has a huge amount of public procurement through its central government, and it is now providing access through this agreement to the public procurement market of India.
Right.
I think that will make it more competitive, and I think we can expect better things from that. But broadly, I think it helps us to counter the impact of the Trump tariffs, and it helps us to integrate with sophisticated developed economies. And I think it is a precursor also to our larger integration with the world economy. So plus points everywhere.
You know, India is also in a near agreement with the EU. Does that give us a little difference, or just in layman language, Adit, if you can differentiate between the trade agreement that we're entering with the EU and the FTA here we have with United Kingdom? They are two separate, and also it comes in the backdrop of Trump imposing tariffs on India, such heavy, steep tariffs. UK is also not very happy with the United States, or Trump rather. So it seems like there's this newfound love between India and the United Kingdom, and Keir Starmer seems more pumped than ever. Never seen a delegation of 125 members arriving in India like that, like a barat.
Well, as far as the trade agreements with Mr. Trump are concerned, I think the UK has got off pretty lightly. But I think the European Union is still smarting under the humiliating agreement that they signed with Mr. Trump.
Right.
And for them, and as well as for India, the finalization of the agreement between the EU and India is a big priority. And I think both sides have announced that it will be completed by the end of this year. and I hope that will happen.
Forward to that. Adit, please come in on that, on the demarcation between EU and UK's free trade agreement. And this is basically India looking out for avenues to expand trade after the big hit we got from the United States. Either way, this was in the pipeline. But it seems like now this might just come as a big savior if Trump tariffs are really indeed imposed. Trump tariffs are not
True,
yet coming
Nabila.
to effect.
True, Nabila. I think what the Trump tariff madness has done is it's actually created this boost for all of the other trade deals, all of the other sort of on paper negotiations. It sort of expedited it, and it's also strengthened, India's stance on multi-alignment. It's deepening powers, deepening sort of trade relations with other economic powers, and it's countering that, US relations which are sort of souring across the world, whether it be Japan, whether it be EU, Australia, or United Kingdom. So, India's taking advantage of that. This particular trade deal has been in the pipeline for about 3.5 odd years, ever since Britain decided to leave the single market, the EU, etc. Uh, you know, from Theresa May to Boris Johnson to Rishi Sunak, everybody has been on, queue to try and expedite this and get this. And there were a lot of obstacles. And, uh, credit should be given to people who have been behind the scenes, people like, Ambassador Vikram Doraiswamy, who's the current High Commissioner to Britain. I mean, they have been working on this day and night to try and get this stitched up. And credit must be given to those people in the background. Because there were a lot of obstacles in the due course, including visa concessions, which Britain are not yet providing. However, they have provided concessions to a lot of other issues, social security contributions, for example, which Indian workers who are on ICT visas, 3-year visas working in the UK, they would have to provide national insurance contributions to the social security. So that roughly amounted to anywhere between 5 to 10,000 pounds over 3 years. Now that is not going to be provided any longer by those workers, and they can, that is monies which India is basically going to be benefiting as a consequence. So those concessions have been made by the United Kingdom. India is going to be, benefiting largely out of this. And on the whole, I think India is the larger beneficiary because it gets access to British markets for all of its exports, which currently is going to be tariffed. And from a UK perspective, things like cars, luxury cars, whisky, etc., get into India with lower tariffs. V8, V9 engines, typically, which were taxed roughly by
Adit,
110%,
all in all,
are going to be taxed.
all in all, are we expected to see a real surge in export to the United Kingdom?
Export and surge, yes. From a sales perspective, from a United Kingdom perspective, I think we're going to see a little bit of a downturn, primarily because duties have come down from 110% to 30% for V8 and V9 engines, for example. But next year, there are talks about those duties going lower. So I don't think sales are going to particularly rise a lot. Because I think people are typically going to wait out for another year to try and buy their luxury cars the following year.
Okay. Ambassador, the size of the delegation, the composition of Starmer's 125-member delegation, what does that signal to you really here? Because we know that this free trade agreement has been in the making for a few years now. They've had multiple meetings, and finally it was signed this July with Modi in London this summer. It was signed, but not too sure how long this would take to actually come into effect. But the 125 delegation almost appears as if they mean business. So why don't you give us your take on it? Is it just mere photo op or British politics? Is this their style?
After their exit from the European Union, obviously the Brits are very keen to develop new markets. And I think their keenness to enter the Indian market on a bigger scale is evident from the large size of the delegation. So there is a target within the agreement to double trade between the two countries by 2030. And I think it is very much achievable given the goodwill that exists between the two sides to immediately to operationalize the agreement. Of course, the British procedures for ratifying the agreement are not yet complete. They will take a little more time, but hopefully by mid next year, the agreement will be operational. And I think from both sides, there is a keenness to make this a success, especially because uh, from an Indian perspective, we look upon it as a sort of a precursor, as I said, to dealing with more developed countries and exchanging concessions with the more developed countries, more not only the European Union, but hopefully other developed countries as well. So I think it augurs very well, and I think the chances of success of this agreement, given our old ties, cultural, linguistic, and educational, and so on, as well as business ties. The Tatas are some of the biggest investors in the United Kingdom already. So, given these existing ties, I think the scope for expansion is certainly very, very positive.
Adit, on China, UK and India signing this deal, what message is this going out to China's growing dominance? West trying desperately to undermine China, basically to ensure it doesn't race past them. You have countries like UK, US shifting towards India. Also, we have the youngest population, skilled, and English is certainly a big factor that gives India an edge. But what's the perception here, and what message does it signal to China?
I think from a China perspective, it's quite clear that the world is trying to diversify its supply chain. Whether that be United States, whether that be Australia, whether that be United Kingdom, they're all trying to desperately ensure that China is not a one-stop shop when it comes to their supply chain. As a consequence, India, Vietnam, all of these countries open up doors from that perspective. Some provide core competencies in manufacturing. Some provide competencies. Countries like India provide competencies in services and other goods and other commodities. But from a UK perspective, we've got to put some things in perspective, Nabila. So, as a consequence of leaving the single market, the EU, the UK loses out by estimates about 8% of the GDP. The UK India FTA only compensates for roughly about 0.20 of that. So, it's a long way that the UK will need to go to ensure that, that deficit that has been created as a consequence of leaving the single market, they are able to fulfill it. And so they will need to broaden their horizon. They will need more partners. And India is just the start of things from a UK perspective. Hopefully, they can stitch up more ties. United States is next. Hopefully, they can get some deals in place.
Yeah.
But with a mercurial Trump in place, who
Just
knows
the
what's
five
going to
more
happen.
stop industries. If people want to now need to switch from US to UK, what would be your suggestion or advice? The five top areas of business that they can etch with UK.
So I think EV vehicles are going to be one of those big ones where India, companies like Mahindra are going to be pushing for it. Pharmaceuticals are going to be quite big. The only downside with the pharmaceuticals is that United Kingdom may push for more patents and more sort of IP sort of stringent procedures. So that may increase prices of bare pharmaceutical products in India. IT, of course, India is already one of those largest providers of IT services to the West. So, we are going to be exploiting that particular aspect. Other than that, I think, generic goods like jute is going to be massive. So jute currently is a very small domain within UK imports from India. With this FTA, a lot of companies sitting in Bengal will be clapping their hands because they will be taking benefits of this.
Right. Just a quick one, finally, Ambassador. Is this now? Of course, Keir Starmer has pushed for this through his delegation. It seems quite clear that the Labour Party is all for this free trade agreement. What if tomorrow, and looking the stability of the Labour Party or Keir Starmer, there are a lot of questions may be asked. What if another government comes in? Do you believe that this is going to shake the foundation of the free trade agreement between India and UK? Can it?
Well, I think Adit will be more competent to answer that question. But the way I look at it, relations with India are a bipartisan issue, and both sides of the aisle support stronger relations with India. I don't see any storm clouds there. And I think Adit was right in saying that the Indian FTA will make only a smaller contribution to the gap left in their GDP growth by their exit from EU. And they have, for instance, the UK has already joined the CPTPP, which is a major FTA. And I think many of us would urge India to look at that option also. But there are some roadblocks ahead. For instance, in line with what the European Union is proposing, the UK is also proposing to impose carbon border tariffs based on emissions. And this is an issue which remains to be negotiated between India and UK. Similarly, the bilateral investment treaty is yet to be negotiated. And I hope that they will gather momentum on these issues also.
All right, Adit, you disagree that this is not going to really, even if there is a change in political party or a prime minister, this trade agreement will still be solid?
Yeah, I mean, for 3.5 years, we're stuck with the Labour Party, so there's nothing, nothing changing that. Relationships with India is a bipartisan issue. I quite concur with Ambassador Bhatia on that particular aspect. We've seen how the Conservatives have built relations with India, and labor relations with India have historically been fairly strong. Where I think issues might come up with regards to India-UK issues, something which both governments have overlooked at this point of time, because they've laid out a minimum common program with regards to only economics at this point, which is the geopolitical issues. With people like Vijay Mallya, the economic offenders who are currently being
Speaking of
patronized.
visas, UK has been clear that visa mandates will not change for Indians.
That's correct. The mandates for UK visas are not
And
going to change drastically.
they've tightened visa norms for Indians, or just everyone. Indians, of course, the beneficiaries, the largest beneficiaries, are the most affected. So UK says that will not change.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the visa rejections for India, it's typically between 8 to 10%, which is far below, some of the other nations, our own neighboring nations. So from that perspective, I think India is fairly insulated. Student visas is still welcomed. Students are still welcome to come and study in the UK. They get their 1 year postgraduate visa as a consequence of studying in any UK university. So they get that UK experience as well. So before they go back to India, or as a consequence, if they're really good in terms of their job performance, then they get grabbed up by those companies by sponsoring them. So I think visa issues still lingers on. Potentially that may become an issue going forward into 2026. But for now, it's just a red herring. I think it's more the geopolitical issues, with the sort of the Khalistanis, which are being patronized disproportionately by the British government. I think those kind of issues are something which will come into play at a later stage.
Thanks very much, Ambassador and Adit, both of you, for joining us on this much needed conversation. UK-India building ties, a strong one, with the free trade agreement on its path. Thank you.